and welcome back, beloved. I just found this amazing little fact today, and I put together a couple verses and certain things I come across as I'm watching documentaries, as I'm watching sermons, and they really just cause my heart to rejoice. And so I want to start with this, and then we'll get a little bit more detailed as we move on. So Luke chapter 21 says, "And they," this is Jesus talking about the time of the end, "will fall by the edge of the sword. The Jewish people will be persecuted. They'll be led away captive into all nations." This is a Jewish historical factual event called the diaspora, where the Jews were sold into all the nations. And it says, "Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles, by other nations, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled." So here Jesus is prophesying correctly that the Jews would be persecuted, led away to all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by nations until the times of the nations are fulfilled. Okay? Zechariah, we're going to talk about what he wrote here in just a minute. Zechariah is talking about the day of the Lord in Zechariah chapter 14. It says, "Behold, the day of the Lord is coming. Your spoil will be divided in your midst, for I'll gather all nations to battle against Jerusalem." So all the nations will eventually come and battle against Jerusalem. But this isn't all going to happen in one day. This is going to play out over several months during the Great Tribulation. It says, "The city will be taken, the houses rifled, the women ravished. Half of the city will go into captivity." Guys, that's up to millions of people. So there's a huge Holocaust-like persecution of the Jewish people coming in the end. It says, "The remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city." There are going to be Jewish people in the city of Jerusalem all the way up until the time of the end. It's really, truly amazing. Moving on, Revelation 11. John is given a reed like a measuring rod, or the angel is, and he stands and he says, "Rise and measure the temple of God." This is the coming rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. These verses are very important, but for the fact I'm trying to get out to you guys today, I'm going through them kind of quickly. So the altar and those who worship there, the temple of God is being measured. Okay, that's the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. But then it says, and this is amazing, "Leave out the courtyard, which is outside the temple. Do not measure it. It has been given to the Gentiles, to the nations, and they will tread the holy city." That means they will trample the holy city underfoot for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. That is the Great Tribulation. It's truly amazing, especially when this is the crux of what I'm trying to show you guys today. This is the verse I want to explain. Daniel 11 verses 36 through the end of the chapter are clearly talking about the Antichrist. Before that, it's speaking about Antiochus Epiphanes a little bit and what happened thousands of years ago. But that is a very, very clear foreshadowing of what will happen in the end with the Antichrist. And Jesus even made mention that what Antiochus did, setting up the abomination of desolation, is a foreshadowing of the coming image of the beast that Revelation talks about. But Daniel 11, I'm going to start here. "At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north," okay, the king of the north is the Antichrist, "will come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through." Okay, talking about the Antichrist, it says he also enters the glorious land. That's Jerusalem. Many countries are overthrown. This is a military leader. He goes through the Antichrist with his coalition, destroys many countries. Who knows who they are? But these escape from his hand. Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. Those are all in Jordan, essentially. He then stretches out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. So he destroys Egypt as well. And this is very key. He has power over the treasures of gold and silver, over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans, the Ethiopians follow at his heels. They submit to him. But news from the east, maybe China, maybe India, and the north, maybe Russia, shall trouble him. Who knows? Those are examples. I'm just trying to get your mind in the time of the tribulation, right? "Therefore he shall go out with great fury, military might, to destroy and annihilate many." And this verse is key. Okay, this is so key. I found this fact out today, and I found it absolutely amazing. This is a prophecy. It says he will plant the tents of his palace. And you just heard of all the military fortifications and everything, so I'm sure that includes it. He plants the tents of his palace between the seas, that's Tel Aviv, and the glorious holy mountain, that's Jerusalem. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. So I just want to explain, through these verses that I've showed you, these verses, here we have correlating prophecies in the Word of God, roughly 2,000 to 2,500 years old. They detail three prophetic things that I think are just astounding, just amazing. One, the Jewish people will be back in their land. From 1948, that started. In 1967, they conquered Jerusalem. They did not secure the entire temple. To this day, Jordan actually controls it through an agreement, the main Temple Mount. But largely, they're back in their land with control. Number two, they'll be at war. They'll be persecuted by the nations, right? And you're already seeing such a huge rise in anti-Semitism. You look at the Holocaust just 70 years ago or however many years ago, you could easily see that happening again. But number three, and this is huge, the Antichrist leads this coalition, obviously. The Bible's clear on that. He sets up his fortifications, his palace, in between the Great Sea and the holy, Tel Aviv and the holy mountain, Jerusalem. Well, I pulled up the map, and this just astounded me. Look, this is the Great Sea. Clearly, it's, the entire sea right there. This is Tel Aviv right here. This is the Holy Mountain. This is Jerusalem. This is the Temple Mount. Look what's right in between. It's Ben Gurion Airport. I don't know if there's another small airport in Israel, but I think this is the only one. It's certainly the only major airport in Israel. If you go to Israel, you always fly into Ben Gurion. And this just amazed me. It doesn't mean this is the time of the end or I'm trying to get sensationalized, but how accurate is the Word of God? Listen, if there was any sort of military takeover of Israel right now and the houses were plundered and half the city goes into captivity, those Jews are literally going to be sold to the nations. Where, as a military leader, would you set up your palace, your fortifications, your most important spot? It would be the airport, the only airport in or out, especially nowadays. And so it just blew my mind when I pulled this up and saw this, that the international airport is in between the sea and Jerusalem and the glorious holy mountain. And so, I wanted to end with what's the point or the value of this? Why study this? Why bring this up? And here's why. This is going back to Daniel chapter 11. I want to read these verses and then explain. It says, those who do wickedly against the covenant, that's Antiochus at the time, but I think it's also talking about the Antichrist, will corrupt with flattery. I think when the Antichrist takes over Jerusalem, some people act corruptly. They'll turn on the Jewish people or Christians. But the people who know their God during the time of the tribulation will be strong and carry out great exploits. That's not talking about military exploits. That could be underground, preaching the gospel, preserving people from being sold or slaves, things like that. Things like that are going on in China right now, for example, right? Underground gospel spreading, right? But then this is so key. Those of the people who understand, they know their God, they understand, shall instruct many. Yet for many days, I think this is talking about the entire Great Tribulation, 3.5 years, they will fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. And so I think that's what it is. We want to know our God and we want to understand. And you can almost see at the time of the end, the people that know their God, they're going to be looking in Daniel. They're going to be looking in Revelation and Zechariah. They're going to see half the city, sold into captivity. They're going to see these prophecies literally come to life. They're going to know their God. They're going to instruct many in righteousness, turning them towards the true God and away from the Antichrist, the false religious system of Mystery Babylon, and the devil. And so I think it's so important to study biblical prophecy because it strengthens your faith in the absolute unwavering truth of the Word of God.